If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, let me give you a rundown. Basically, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Here how it's work. Anchor lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to the most popular listening platforms, including Spotify, with a single tap. Anchor is also the only place you can publish video podcasts to Spotify. With Anchor, creators can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And the amount that you can upload on Anchor is unlimited, which is really helpful for me. And it also helps you with getting statistics for your podcast in terms of where people are listening from, so that you know how many people listen to your podcast all over the world.
Hi, I am Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes.
The next group chat for people with NLD or other learning challenges will be on June 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific time zone. And for those of you who haven't been to a group before, it's just a safe place for you to talk about some challenges you may have with your learning challenge, and to be able to feel like you can vent if you need to others who know what it's like to be neurodiverse and not neurotypical. I also want to mention to you that I just launched my podcast swag on Wednesday of this week and have a page for it on my website, and I will also send you the link to it in the podcast description, and I will also send it to you in the newsletter that I usually send out on Fridays. I am now selling t-shirts, water bottles, and a backpack, and they all have the podcast logo and title on it and the tagline. So I am looking forward to watching the sales and seeing who buys them, and spreading the word more about my podcast.
Also, another announcement that I have to make is I recently created another podcast called Sleepy Butterfly for people who have challenges with sleeping at night or meditating, and it's geared towards people who are auditorily sensitive or have chronic migraines, and being able to have nice relaxing nature sounds for them to fall asleep to or to meditate to and be able to be refreshed the next day or when they come out of their meditation. So some of the sounds are like chimes or nature sounds like water or rainforest. And again, it's called Sleepy Butterfly. It is on Spotify and also Apple Podcast and Google Podcast. And it's on everywhere else where you can get podcasts as well. So I hope you are able to get some benefits out of that one also.
And today I am very excited to announce that BetterHelp is now sponsoring this podcast. I have had 7 years of therapy, so I know it can help change your life if you not only let it, but work on the personal goals that you set with your therapist. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are the greatest asset. And special offering to listeners of Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/. I'll put in the link in the podcast description for you. That's BetterHelp, HELEP. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Good morning. So this episode will be about NLD and time management. Have you ever had a difficult time planning ahead so that you are not so far behind on tasks with work, school, or personal goals? Or thought it would take you way less or more time to do something than it actually did? Excuse me. Both of these things have happened to me many times in my life. In middle school, it took me forever to just write a paragraph that I would start crying because I didn't know what to write about. I couldn't process or think through my thoughts fast enough to put them on paper. In high school, my issue was taking longer on tests because of having to remember information that had been archived in my brain. I was good at getting assignments done on time with homework, but it was really hard for me to do well in class because of NLD. But I didn't know I had NLD at the time. In college, it got even more challenging with assignments and homework, so much that I was barely passing my classes for the first 2 years. Then I followed my hunch and decided to get tested for a learning disability. I'm so glad I did that because because once I had my accommodations, I got more A's and B's in my classes, no more C's. The reason I bring testing into this is because it does have to do with time management. Usually tests are timed in public schools. I didn't have that growing up since I was homeschooled, so I wasn't used to it in college. Excuse me. This is why it was so helpful for me to get an extra hour and 30 minutes on my tests and be able to take more time to do them and take them in a room with minimal distractions. It was also easier for me to recall information because I was able to go over recordings of classes to study. I also used the audio version of Quizlet to study because now I knew how my brain learned and remembered information better. Now fast forward to adult life. It is harder because I have credit card bills to pay and pay my parents back for some more things now than I used to. I also had a full-time job with them for almost 2 years now, and I love it. I work on time management at work by using a to-do list program called Daylight. It really helps with making a to-do list to check off track appointments and progress on long-term projects. It also makes it easier to share projects or tasks with colleagues that will help you complete them. Another thing that can help with time management is prioritizing things so you can get things that are more important done first. I did this in school by doing the assignments in the subjects that took longer and were harder for me to do first. Then I would save the easiest ones for last. That way I would have more energy for the more difficult ones. I also utilize the app Paprika to help with planning recipes. I used this in college to help me know how much to buy and how long it would take when I went grocery shopping. This also makes it easier to scale recipes so that you can know how to alter the recipe. It does the math for you, which is really helpful when you have NLD. Back to work life. I have gotten better at planning ahead with tasks. For example, I was gearing up for Easter at work and thought to leave out the charts and lyrics for the music team since they were rehearsing on Saturday. And I told my mom where they would be so she could provide them to the music team. I also have been able to think about this with my personal life a little bit in terms of saving more time for myself to do chores. Now I start vacuuming earlier in the week so I can have more of the weekend to do fun things or help my parents out if they need help with house chores. I also have started tracking my budget better, which hasn't taken as long for me to learn as it used to. I'm also learning what it's like to make meals for myself and my family during the week. I'm so glad that I've been proactive with saving money because I had some recent car repairs and I had the money this time because I wasn't in debt anymore. Okay, enough about me. Let's look at some articles now. Here's an article that talks about some time management strategies for students. It is titled Time Management for Kids with Learning Disabilities by Leslie Jossel. Quote, learning to manage time is a skill that for students with learning disability and ADHD often must be explicitly taught and consistently practiced. As demands on time increase with age, review the techniques she's using and strategies or change techniques as necessary. End quote. Excuse me. Here are the strategies. Quote, 1, use a planner. Whether your child uses a paper planner or electric calendar, make sure her planner or his planner is set up as a grid system so they can see their work at a week at a glance. 2, start with a tough task first. Encourage your child to do the hardest, longest, or least liked activity first so that they will find it satisfying to move on to tasks that they find less daunting or more enjoyable. Show time passing. Hang an analog clock in each room that your child does homework in so they can see the sweep of time. Make tasks achievable. Your child is more likely to complete their assignments if they are broken down into manageable parts. Break tasks into manageable parts when tackling a long-term project. Work with your child to establish the goal of the project and break down each step into manageable parts. Estimate time. Help your child determine how much time they need to complete tasks. Use timers. Devices such as timers and buzzers can help a child self-monitor and keep track of time. Set it to music. Music is rhythm and rhythm is structure. And lastly, get active. Put energy into their tasks by having your child stand up to read or walk the dog while she reviews her notes. End quote. These are really good strategies to use for time management and will help you get your tasks done more quickly. I do listen to music while I work to help me stay focused on it, and it does help. Sometimes I also use a timer for myself so I know how long it took me to do a certain task. I can overestimate how long it will take me to do something. I'm glad that I've gotten faster with some things because then I have more time to get other things done. And another thing that a timer can be good to use for is, like, let's say you want to work for 30 minutes before you take a break. That's good because then you can remind yourself, oh, I've been working for this long. I need to take a break now or move on to a different task. Here's another article titled Child Procrastinating: Why Kids Struggle with Time Management by Julia Raw. This article also presents some strategies to help with procrastination and time management. Here are the strategies. Quote, 1. Use a visual timer or countdown clock. Help kids, in quotes, see the passage of time on a visual timer or countdown clock. These analog clocks use a colored disc to show how much time is left. 2. Plan brain breaks, in quotes. Plan to take a break before frustration or lack of focus sets in. For grade schoolers, that typically is after 10 to 15 minutes of work. 3. Break tasks into smaller steps. Kids who struggle with organization and planning may not know how to get started or what needs to get done to finish a task, end quote. So those strategies are basically the same as the last article suggested, but a little different and a little more detailed in some ways. So I hope that this episode helped you think of some more tips that you can use, even if you're not a kid or a student. I'm sure they will work for you too. And maybe they even just jogged your brain a little bit, like, oh, that is a good idea. Or it helps you think of one of your own ideas for time management and prioritizing. I want you to try different ways to improve your time management. Maybe try one of the ways that I quoted today. Talk to you next Friday.
And today I am very excited to announce that BetterHelp is now sponsoring this podcast. I have had 7 years of therapy, so I know it can help change your life if you not only let it, but work on the personal goals that you set with your therapist. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are the greatest asset. And special offering to listeners of Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/. I'll put in the link in the podcast description for you. That's BetterHelp, HELEP. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Also, another announcement that I have to make is I recently created another podcast called Sleepy Butterfly for people who have challenges with sleeping at night or meditating, and it's geared towards people who are auditorily sensitive or have chronic migraines, and being able to have nice relaxing nature sounds for them to fall asleep to or to meditate to and be able to be refreshed the next day or when they come out of their meditation. So some of the sounds are like chimes or nature sounds like water or rainforest. And again, it's called Sleepy Butterfly. It is on Spotify and also Apple Podcast and Google Podcast. And it's on everywhere else where you can get podcasts as well. So I hope you are able to get some benefits out of that one also. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.